Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today I would like to share with you a really special, smaller sized EDC folder from the mind of Ian Pekarsky over at CMF Metalworks. This is his full production version of the print being made by Riot Knives. So that means two things. Number one, Ian's absolutely mind-blowing design language coupled with Riot's legendary perfection in their fit and finish, in their actions, in their overall build, and as you're going to see in this particular variation, an incredible hand-rubbed satin blade. Everything about this knife is exciting. It feels a lot more exotic than the price would dictate, and that's really, again, going back to Ian's great design. The lines of this knife, the sexy, sweeping, swooping humps and the curvature and the whole thing. It's like, I don't know if it's poetry or pornography would be the best way to describe it, but there's something so special about everything that he designs. And for those of you that have had the opportunity to handle one of his custom knives, you already know this. You're already a fan. But I do believe that this new production model, the print, is going to open up Ian's incredible design to so many more people, because you're not on a wait list, you're not having to get on his order books, you're not having to wait for him to physically make each and every part and fit it all and finish it all. You're able to get in on these, order it straight up, and not have to spend a lot of money either. I mean, you're looking at a considerable discount when you get into any high-end designer's production variations. And this knife doesn't leave anything lacking. It's really great materials, really great ergonomics, really great fit and finish. The action is, of course, perfect. And what's funny is when I first took it out of the packaging, the burrito here, and I gave it its first flick, I was a little bit unsure. I'm like, is that detent a little bit too light? And it's not that the detent is too light. The detent is light, but it's crisp. It's finely tuned, and it feels absolutely fantastic. As you can tell, I'm pretty excited about this knife. The design, the way it feels in the hand, the execution of all of his design elements. They really nailed it. They did a fantastic job. So let's go ahead and get into some photography, then into the tabletop review. We'll do the TLDW for those of you that do not have an attention span that allows you to make your way all the way through a full review video. I'll give you the high line, the highs, the lows, the pros, and the cons. We'll get into the specs, and then I'll give you my final thoughts at the close and see if we agree or disagree on how incredible this little knife really is. All right, so as I said before in the intro, this one excites me a lot. I've known Ian for a number of years now. I've always been a big fan of his work. We were actually introduced by a mutual friend, someone that a lot of you guys will know, Jeff Blovelt. He is Tough Knives, Tough Thumbs, however you want to refer to him. And he and Ian had been really, really close friends for a long, long time. And he sent me a message one night. He's like, dude, he goes, I got to hook you up with my buddy Ian. He's just getting started out in knife making, and I think he's just going to absolutely kill it. He's got great designs. He's got a great eye for detail, and he's really moving along very, very quickly, developing his skill set. And this was, I want to say close to 10 years ago. Anyway, he was super excited to see what Ian was going to be doing. And I've been following along with Ian's progress over the years, and I get more and more excited everything I see. A few years back at Blade Show, we had a chance to sit down and have a nice breakfast together and talk about a few things. And I know at the time that he was struggling with trying to balance the incredible popularity that his designs had brought him up to, that he just couldn't make enough knives for everybody. And I'm pretty sure it was back then that he was probably already considering doing a production knife based off of one of his designs. And I'm really glad to see that he chose Riot to do it with, because there are a lot of places that you can go to and have OEM projects done, but very, very, very few can offer you the level of quality that Riot does. And especially for anywhere near the price. You're going to be looking at the bolster lock version is $425. I think this is the most expensive of the three versions. And man, it's so flawlessly executed. Look at the hand rub satin on here. Look how they've still maintained a good degree of crispness between that swedge, the flats, and the primary bevels. Fantastic job. Fantastic job on the plunges as well, terminating early, well before the heel of the edge. Just everything was done right. And of course, the action on a Riot is going to be just friggin' amazing. We'll move that up there. Okay. The packaging is as I just showed you. It comes in the knife burrito made by Dragon Cut. And then you get a nice microfiber cleaning cloth in there with Ian's design, his logo design built into it. And he tossed this little guy in right here, little PVC patch. Now, let's get straight into the design. Take a look at the sexy lines of this knife. Not only does it translate to a really impressive look, but when you've got it in your hand, it melts. Absolutely melts in your hand. It's so ergonomic. It's so fantastic. As a matter of fact, that brings me to where I want to get into the TLDW. Too long didn't watch. For those that don't want to sit through an entire knife review to get the details of the knife being reviewed, I've created the TLDW. So here we go. I'm going to start with the pros and make our way over to the cons. Spoiler alert, there ain't many cons, that's for damn sure. All right, going to make this nice and fast. Pros, again, I'm going to say that word again, design. His design is amazing. Now, while a lot of his custom knives will have a recurve built into the blade profile, and this one doesn't, I still think that it works perfectly. It still looks amazing. This is the kind of blade shape you'd see from Michael Raymond and makers like that have built a legacy of timeless classics. And I think this knife is certainly going to fit well within that. Maybe not a timeless classic for everybody because it does have a lot of artistic flair. So it is going to attract some people more than others. So I really should be careful how I use that terminology. So it may not be a timeless classic for everybody. For someone like me, it is. This is the kind of knife that kind of fits in well for everything. It really doesn't matter if you're dressed up, dressed down, if you're going out for a hard day's work, or it's going to be more of a dressy knife. It kind of fits the bill for everything. And yeah, this makes me deeply regret that I don't have one of his customs in my collection. I really wish I could show you side by side one of his customs along with this knife. And I apologize, I've got tape gunk here on the edge because, yeah, I mean, even a knife that has just arrived, I'm still going to use it. I don't care. Knives are made to be used, and that's how I enjoy them. Okay, so my apologies for that. I think I probably was able to wipe all of it off without cleaning it with a cleaner. Yeah, looks good. All right, so yeah, I deeply regret not ever having gotten one of his customs to review for you. So this is kind of, I'm just dropping shit all over the place. This is kind of coming out of the blue for you if you don't know who Ian is. Join his Facebook group, follow him on Instagram, do something to see all of the different designs that he's made. They're so friggin' sexy. Some are a bit more aggressively designed than others, I'll admit that. But it's all design language that appeals to me personally, so I've always enjoyed all of them. As a matter of fact, his more basic designs I haven't enjoyed as much as his more aggressively designed, or I guess that's the best way to put it, his more aggressively designed looks. All right. I want to give you a little bit of background on this as soon as I get done with the TLDW. Okay, so the pros, again, design, 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 design. I'm a big, big fan of the design, and that's going to translate directly to the next pro, which is the ergonomics. It wants to follow the natural shape of your hand in a saber grip. It's, oh man, it's one of those knives where you spend half the damn review guffawing and making sound effects instead of actually talking about the knife. That's how it presents itself. It's that nice. The next pro for me is absolutely going to be the perfection of Riat's action. It's a nice crisp detent. It's not overly hard. And it's a difficult balance to strike because everybody wants that lightning fast, crazy action. But there are times, especially if you're going to do like a reverse flick off of a thumb stud, you do not want that to have a crazy hard detent. Because if it does, it makes it nearly impossible to open the way that you want to open it. So if you want to reverse flick, you've got that. If you want to thumb flick it, you've got that. If you want to slow roll it, you've got that. It's got a pretty decently high fidget factor for a knife that doesn't have a flipper tab and doesn't have slots cut in the blade or fullers or anything else. It's just a pair of thumb studs, yet the fidgetability is great. And while there isn't a big cutaway here for lock bar access, it's very, very easy to get into the lock bar. So yes, overall, another big pro for me is going to be the action. It feels great. And another pro, the materials. They did a really, really nice, let's see if I can get a tight shot on the finish of the bolster. A really nice, bright, bead blasted finish. It's almost like a Scotch-Brite wheel finish, almost like a very fine eggshell on the bolster. Nice marbled carbon fiber. It's actually more of a shredded carbon fiber. And I know when it's listed, it's probably going to say marbled carbon fiber, but there's no marbling here. It really is a little specks and shreds, so it's more of a shredded carbon fiber. And they've also done that carbon fiber in the back spacer as well. Nicely executed, and it helps to reduce the weight of the knife as well. So all the way around, for me, pretty much the entire knife is all pros. Hey guys, sorry for the interruption, but I promise I will make this very, very brief. I want to thank those of you that have joined and become channel members. You are helping to support the channel and helping to continue the growth. And if you've been considering supporting the channel in any way, shape, or form, because I do not have channel sponsors, I don't shill anybody's products, I don't get paid for anything, I don't do affiliate links, so everything is completely self-funded. If you'd like to help out and watch the channel grow and get more great content coming your way, please do consider becoming a member. And I apologize if it just seems like I'm jumping out of my skin overly excited about this. I try not to do that, and I'm not like that about most knives that I bring out under my lens, but this is one of those knives I have been eagerly anticipating for the longest time. And now that it's actually finally here and it's in my hand and it's under my lens, I'm very, very excited about it. And I'm so happy that they executed it so well. So I'm I'm proud of Ian for the design, and I'm happy for him that his chosen partner, Riyadh, just friggin' nailed it. Now, let's talk about specs. I'll do a quick spec list right up here. I'm kind of changing my format a little bit. Please let me know down below in the comments if this works for you better than the old way. The old way, I would list all the specs right here, and then I would read down them one by one by one. If I'm doing it this way and I'm just popping them up on the screen for a few seconds, you can pause it and you can read along at whatever pace you want to. And I think that's going to reduce the runtime of my videos because they've gotten absurdly long lately. 30, 45 minutes. It's crazy. So if I can trim a few minutes off here and there, I'm going to try to do so. Now, let's talk a bit about this particular design. When I talked to Ian about it, I had a few questions for him about the process that he went through in this design and in this project. He said basically he started doing this back in 2021 with Riyadh, and he got the first prototypes in 2022. And his whole idea was to design a production knife that had all of his design language that everybody kind of comes to expect from him. He omitted doing his recurve because he wanted to make it more straightforward and, as he says, user-friendly for the masses, for more general cutting tasks from a lot of different people. There are people that do not like recurves. I'm not one of them. I love a nice recurve blade. They're very useful, and a lot of people don't like them because they're very difficult to resharpen. Now, Ian says he spent about 6 months overall designing this particular model, and then once he had it locked in, he went ahead and made the first custom prototype that Riyadh was able to base this knife off of. I can't even imagine how difficult and how stressful that had to be. That's a long period of time. So what he did was he sent the prototype around and he wanted to get some feedback from a lot of different people in the community. He took that feedback, made a couple of adjustments, changed the grind because it was initially a flat ground blade, and he switched over to this deep hollow grind, and he reduced some weight in the handle. So if you're ever out there thinking to yourself, man, nobody ever listens to the community. Nobody listens to what we have to say. They just make what they're going to make, and they cash their checks, and they go along with their happy little lives. And it's not like that. Guys like Ian, he's got such a direct connection with his customers. And you'll see that, again, if you go over to his Facebook group, that he's going to listen to the feedback that's given to him. And if it's something that makes sense and it works well for his design and doesn't detract away from something important that he was trying to do, then he's going to incorporate it, because at the end of the day, he understands that it's you that's paying his bills, you know? It's you that's buying the knives. And obviously, when you get into a production run, you want as many knives to sell as possible. It's not like the custom knife game where you're making one at a time anyway, unless you're doing a big dealer order. So you're not looking at it in the same terms. For production, you need to make something that everybody's going to like, so you could sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units, or with the bigger companies, thousands and thousands. His idea was to have a nice snappy detent, which I feel that he got covered. I think a lot of people would have made the mistake of making it a much harder detent, but this one, I mean, it's just friggin', it's perfect. It's tuned absolutely perfectly. And I had to ask him, because I'm like, where did the name Print come from? Because it didn't just jump out at me as to why the knife would be called Print. And he's got a background in photography. So if we take into account that this is his artistic vision, so if he were to have taken that photograph and it was so perfect that he's like, this, I've got to share this with the world, I'm going to create prints of it, and maybe he would autograph them and make prints of it. That's what he's done here. He's taken that piece of art out of his mind, he's made it into a reality, and he's made prints for everybody else to enjoy. I don't remember what all his pricing is like on his customs, because they do vary, obviously, from model to model and from the various material choices and things like that. But figure on average, if you were looking at $1,000 to get into one of his customs, would you rather be able to get into, for at least for your very first time, to experience his designs? Would you rather buy a certified reproduction, a print of it, and spend a small fraction of that money? It might work out better for you. And that's exactly what this is all about. Ian's a great dude. He's one of those guys that loves to interact with his fans and love to interact with his customers. He's got a great sense of humor, super, super funny guy. And I was honestly wondering how long it was going to take him to do something like this. To make something that everybody could afford, well, most everybody it's in the collector's arena that would normally be interested in his knives can afford this knife. That's the best way to put it. And I was really wondering who he was going to partner with, and I'm really glad it was Riat. One thing I forgot to talk about was the spot where he chose to do the jimping right up here. It's just perfect. My thumb naturally wants to go there. You've got this dip in the design of the frame, and then a very abbreviated kind of thumb ramp going up to the spine of the blade. And my thumb just naturally wants to go there. And I apologize for zooming in on my dry, beat-up thumb. It looks terrible on camera. But that's exactly where my thumb wants to go. The jimping is good. It's not super grabby, I'll tell you that right now. If you want something that's got crazy, ridiculous jimping, this isn't going to be your choice. But it's effective, it works, it's right where you want it to be. I know that there are a lot of people that prefer to choke up on their blades. This hump right here in the frame that allows for such a sexy flow in the lines isn't great for throwing your index finger up there and choking up. You could still choke up a little bit in here into that choil. It's not that bad. But I know a lot of guys that just, they freak out if they can't completely choke up. Hold on, I'm reaching for microfiber cloth here. I've got fingerprints all over this. I know some guys that freak out if they can't put their finger right there for some reason. The only nitpick I have for this knife, and it's only because the action is so good, it makes me really, really, really wish that there was a flipper tab. I wish this was a flipper so much I can't even tell you. And he has designed some of his knives with this, I think he calls it the ghost tab, but it is the teeniest, tiniest little flipper tab, but yet it's still very effective. And I think that would have worked well with this design. So I'm hoping if there's ever a version 2 of this that he makes one with a flipper option, because I really think that would be fantastic. But for those that like a traditional manual folder with thumb studs, you're really going to enjoy the action on this. Whether you're flicking it with your thumb or your fingers, it is just fantastic. It really works well. There's your lockup, by the way. I did neglect to mention that. And you do have steel on steel lockup with that lock bar insert. And of course, it's perfectly centered and perfectly ground. Look at that tip. But that, of course, is what you expect from Riat. They never disappoint. All right, I'm out of here for now, guys. I'm sorry if this turned into more of a ooh and ah kind of video instead of just a straight up review. It's kind of hard to contain my excitement with certain knives and with certain designers and certain knife makers. And this is one of those cases. I think that this is such a sexy overall design, and it was executed so well by Riat that it's kind of hard to be completely impartial here. I really am a fan of this knife, and I think it's going to do extraordinarily well. If you're looking at getting one, I will make sure that I have put all the information into the description of where you can get them, when you can get them, and all that kind of good stuff, because you're going to want to add this to your collection. I'm out of here for now. Thank you guys for joining me as always, and I'll see you on the next video.